Hi, my name is Craig Reardon. I am the archivist and librarian for the Flowchart Foundation's Ashbery Resource Center, which you've gotten a small sampling of from Jeffrey. I will not be asking any of you to sing because I'm a librarian and we are bored. So just a quick overview of the catalog. Let me see, unhandled rejection. That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you want to try another browser, maybe?
Yeah.
Just type in Ashbery Resource Center so you can go right to it.
Nice.
Sorry
Oh my
for the
goodness.
keyboard.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
it's French.
Yeah, I know. We're
Dying frogs.
yeah. Center. It's .com, right, Jeffrey?
You know, .com. This is a secret to get right to the catalog. It's the old website, but I have it redirected. Try .com if not, it's .com.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Hey, there we go. Okay, so returning. So a quick history of the catalog. It derives from David Kermani's, John's partner, then husband, 1980 something bibliography. David wrote this unprompted because he is a fastidious man and appreciates a well-kept record, and did not appreciate that when John was asked for poems to be sent, that John would send poems that had already been published. And so he decided to start tracking down everything that John had published. He also very much disliked Ashbery's biography, which said something like he came from Rochester and went to Harvard. So David decided, unbidden, to take this task upon himself, create a bibliography that contained a record of everything Ashbery had ever done. Blurbs, miscellaneous passing mentions of in print, everything. It is a monumental work in a true sense. And he published it, and life went on. He intended to keep updating it, but was unable to do so. And in the early noughts, he was approached by a professor from Stanford who sort of chastised him for not keeping the bibliography up to date. And one thing led to another, and the Flowchart Foundation was started for various reasons. And then the Ashbery Resource Center was started. Here we are. The first person to sort of undertake the project after David was Michaela Morissette, who was John's assistant and also at the time one of the editors for the literary magazine Conjunctions. And the project has always been to create a record of everything Ashbery writes or anything that mentions Ashbery. And so the primary logic of the catalog is the A through J's. And so if you go to the advanced search, you have these bibliographic codes, A through J. So it's everything from full books, pamphlets, broadsides, and translations, to miscellaneous ratings, blurbs, performances in plays and films by J.A. And then we go through the K's, which are things that sort of are about Ashbery, to the Z's, which are the Flowchart Foundation. But you can just see that any cinema that's based off of an Ashbery poem, any visual art or music or anything based off of John's work has a place in the catalog. The L's are discussions of Ashbery's work. The M's are miscellaneous passing mentions of in print, which is delightful. And is actually one of the major ongoing projects of the catalog. We have what I lovingly refer to our attempt to print out the internet, since Ashbery is regularly mentioned online these days, being the canonical poet he is. David, for a long time, would, when he came across a mention of Ashbery from this Google search that he had set, he would print out the article, and we would catalog it. So we have, I don't even know how many linear feet, but we have boxes upon boxes upon boxes of printouts from the internet of miscellaneous mentions of Ashbery. And some of them are like silly, just quoting John because he's an important poet. Others are surprisingly revealing. There will be, you know, odd, or like the poet John Keane, who has a blog that he updates regularly. He writes about Ashbery sometimes, but Keane hasn't published any like prose work about Ashbery except on this blog, but we have printouts of it. So you can sort of investigate the relationship between John Keane and Ashbery. There's more examples than I can really give, but like a good example, or a revealing example perhaps, of the scope of material that we have is if you look, the type. So we all know this poem. This was published in Rivers and Mountains. It's a important poem to John's career. Has a lot of people, has a lot of commentary on it. So you see, if you pull up this record, this derives from David's original bibliographic entry on it. And we have this note. And these notes are sort of the not prime, but one of the main values of the catalog, and one of my main jobs is crafting these notes, which give context to the record, to the item being cataloged, and also point to obvious connections, if you will, identifying epigraphs and the like. You have this whole note where he talks about the process of writing the book and everything. We also have, at the Ashbery Resource Center, we have editions of pretty much everything John ever wrote in various publications, right? So we have the original Holt, Reinhardt, and Winston, and then we have the Echo, and so on and so forth. But you can go through and you can see all the places in which clepsydra has appeared. So it appeared in Rivers and Mountains, and then it was selected into his selected poems, various editions of the selected poems, and then it winds up in The Mooring of Starting Out, of course, and it arrives in the collected poems. And somehow, when you get through all this, you will eventually come to we'll eventually come to interesting little things that you really wouldn't find anywhere else. So this is a very, very small journal that does not exist anymore. It had a whole 2 issues of the Modern Review, published by Parsifal Press out of Canada. And it had a special edition or whatever on clepsydra. And we have all of these people that contributed to this edition, which has a number of revealing things, right? We have Peter Gizzi here, Donald Revel, Robert Kelly, Ange Malenko, John Tranter, Ben Lerner, so on and so forth. It would be very difficult to locate this text anywhere else, basically. It's probably in existence at another library somewhere, but it had such a small run. Where is that library going to be? Who really knows? We have it. And so that's sort of one of the examples of the range of materials we have. Again, we don't have a whole lot of very, how would you put it, intrinsically valuable materials. We do have some things like the Arion Press edition of Self-Portrait in a Convex Mirror, the sort of deluxe, luscious edition. Mostly what we have is a very curated selection of materials, all relating to John Ashbery, and that all are in dialogue with each other. And when you go to this place, when you go to our physical location, which you all should, as Jeffrey said, you will just discover things that you really didn't know existed. Like we found just the other day an interview that John gave to some paper in Australia in the 80s that was, you're not going to just come across these things on their own. And we also have some other things that are revealing and difficult, and this sort of goes to the drawbacks of the bibliographic model. So we talked earlier about Barbara Guest and her relationship to the New York School. We have some of John's emails. They're all sort of kept at Harvard, but we have various copies of things. And after Guest died, Ashbery wrote a email to the obituary editor of the New York Times, urging for her to be given a New York Times obituary. And a few days afterwards, she was duly given one. And if you look at the original email, John has a number of phrases that sort of distinguish Gist, right? She was unlike a number of prominent women poets at the time. She wasn't like Denise Levertov or Adrienne Rich with their political poetry, and so on and so forth. And those phrases were copy and pasted from Ashbery's email and put right into the obituary. So it just sort of goes to show the range of materials we have, the importance of the materials to Ashbery's work, and also to the broader New York school. As we catalog more things and as we move outwards, we will start expanding our scope to include other members of the New York school and everything, and sort of draw them all into dialogue and create the sort of generative nexus, if you will, this generative network speaking to all of it. So, Ashbery Resource Center, you should all come.